Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Anime Theory, where, oh boy, do we seem to like completely changing the end of an anime series, huh? So, Code Geass is one of the greatest anime I've ever watched. Oh Duo, you're so late to the party, that anime ended like a century ago. Well, shocker of the century, I'm late to some of the most brilliant anime. Wouldn't be the first time. Heck, I've said it so many times that I guarantee people are getting tired of it. Well, late to the party or not, geez, this series was an absolute joy to watch. Probably helps that the show's written very similarly to Death Note. Not going to lie about it, I'm super biased. Now, Code Geass had one of the most interesting, thought-provoking, and well-crafted endings in all of anime. It's so well-crafted, in fact, that the upcoming third season of Code Geass has fans a bit frightened. I mean, the ending of the series seems pretty cut and dry. Lelouch is killed and pieces restored to the land. The show ended so perfectly that having Lelouch somehow survive afterwards not only feels like it may ruin said ending, but it also may just come out of nowhere. I mean, how could they justify having Lelouch suddenly survive? That stab wound says it all, he's dead. This third season is going to need more than just a band-aid to fix that problem. Well, what if I was to tell you that everything was planned in advance? That not only was Lelouch always going to survive, but that he fully well knew it as well. Strap in tight, everyone, because it's time to pull the sheet off this magic trick and reveal how he did it. You aren't too smart for me, Lelouch. Unless you are in the sense of being completely wrong, whatever. So, for those of you who ignored the spoiler warning or who may want a refresher, let me give you a brief plot summary. Lelouch is a Britannian royal who gains an ability called Geass from a mysterious girl only known as C2. Now, there are a number of Geass abilities shown throughout the series, but in specific, Lelouch's allows him to force someone to do any one thing for him. It basically rewrites their mind to bend to his will, and while he can only use it once per person, it ends up being a ridiculously useful ability. Long story short, he ends up battling Britannia in an effort to free Japan from its tyranny, but by the end he ends up pretty much enslaving most of the world. After a plan he concocted to make himself the villain in order to secure peace for the world, Lelouch is then killed by his previous friend/enemy Suzaku, dressed in Lelouch's original Zero attire. And that's it. It's implied that he dies right in his little sister's arms. All caught up? Alright, let's move on. So, the question isn't if he survives, it's how. We already know he's going to return in the third season, and the direct ending of the anime seemed to imply that he was still alive anyways. Lelouch is alive, but the question is, how? Well, my fine feathered friend, the answer has been staring you right in the face for many years, and it was all planned out by Lelouch. Here, let me explain. So, as we see throughout the series, there are two main people involved in the whole Geass process. You have the beings known as the Code, who are totally immortal and the ones who are able to bestow the Geass upon whoever will accept it. Despite being able to bestow these abilities, however, they are incapable of either using the Geass themselves or having the Geass used on them. They live until the point where their Geass user manages to take over their position. The two main codes we see throughout the series are the likes of C2 and V2, who hope to eventually pass on their immortality to the next unfortunate soul to get stuck in this never-ending nightmare. That moves us on to the Geass users. These humans obtain a special ability from the Code, and are able to use it whichever way they please. In Lelouch's case in specific, he needs only to gaze into another's eyes to activate his Geass. Now, this sounds all well and good, but there's a catch. Those incapable of dealing with the ability will eventually be destroyed by it. As the Geass user continues to use their ability, it gradually gains more and more power until the user is no longer able to control it themselves. We see this begin to happen to Lelouch as he accidentally commands Princess Euphemia to slaughter literally anyone labeling themselves Japanese. Seriously, Lelouch, could you not just ask for something more normal as a joke? Go buy me some goldfish, maybe. Nope, the first thing you come up with in your mind as a joke is to slaughter those who you wanted to protect. Great job, Lelouch. After a while, the Geass will take over both of the user's eyes, and it's at this point that the Code find the ability most important. You see, at this stage, the Geass user is able to obtain the Code's immortality. Usually, the Geass user is completely unaware of this eventual plan, so they kinda just get stuck with his immortality whether they want it or not. So now you must be wondering why I would explain all of this. I mean, it's clear that Lelouch hasn't killed C2 by the end. She's still alive, so there doesn't seem to be a solution to this problem. Well, oh boy, yes there was actually. You see, he didn't get his immortality from either C2 or V2, at least not directly. Instead, he got it from the man he intended to destroy since the beginning, his father and the Emperor of Britannia, Charles. Recall that near the end of the series, Charles ends up stealing the code from V2, who had previously assigned him his Geass. Now, he was the code bearer at this point, so sure, he couldn't use his Geass ability anymore, as he had obtained the code from V2, but immortality has its perks. Lelouch wasn't able to kill him directly. Later in the series, however, he does end up dying in a pretty confusing way. So, if Lelouch couldn't kill him before, why did he suddenly die at the hands of Lelouch this time? Well, notice by this point that both of Lelouch's eyes are entirely taken over by the Geass, as its power has finally reached the limit. It isn't until this stage that a Geass user can actually kill a code user, so it makes sense that now Lelouch has the ability to finally rid himself of his demented father. So, we've established that he could have potentially taken the code from his father, but then this raises several questions. 1. If he now has the code, why doesn't he bear the brand that all the other code users have? 2. How come the immortality hadn't activated itself up to the point of his death? And 3. How come Lelouch was still able to use his Geass after he obtained the code from his father? Well, let's address each one of these to showcase how truly genius Lelouch is. First, the brand. We see this insignia on every one of the code users, and yet Lelouch doesn't seem to have an obvious brand. Well, what if I told you he was hiding it intentionally? Notice that right before his death, Charles grabbed Lelouch's neck. Shortly afterwards, Lelouch begins wearing clothing that hide his neck almost completely. Isn't it interesting that he would go out of his way to block his neck, the place most likely to bear the brand? Chances are, he didn't want anyone discovering that he was now potentially going to be immortal. Especially with Suzaku seeing more than he should have, it would have been dangerous for Suzaku to know that Lelouch could potentially survive forever. Second, let's address the whole aspect of him not technically being immortal up to this point. I mean, Lelouch dies right there at the end. He can't just be immortal. Well, that's where things get really fun. You see, I intentionally left out a key piece of evidence. Why? To make the video sound cooler, that's really it. To truly gain immortality, the user must experience death. It's why Charles ends up shooting himself. Remember, the Geass worked this time, and Charles shot himself only to be revived seconds later, and the Geass not able to be used on him. This is because he wanted Lelouch to do this to him. Now he could truly be immortal because he'd experienced death. And the same exact thing was required for Lelouch. When he was stabbed at the end of the series, that wasn't truly the end, it was only the beginning. Now that Lelouch had experienced death, he could truly take hold of his immortality. This actually leads into the third point as well, in two ways in specific. Regardless of who he got the Geass from, he would likely be able to use this Geass up until the code took over. He didn't truly have this ability up until his death, so normally it would make sense that he could still use his Geass. But there's the big elephant in the room that needs addressing. In the R3 teaser trailer, near the end we see Lelouch's eye, and he still seems to have his Geass. So the question is, how? How can he be a code and still have his Geass? The series thus far would seem to show that this is absolutely impossible. Well, that's where you would be wrong. Now yes, in most cases Geass users can't use their Geass once they receive the code. The problem with that is who they usually get the code from. In most cases, the Geass user gets the code from the person they made the contract with. And there lies the true answer. Lelouch didn't get the code from C2. Instead, he got it from his father Charles, who got it from V2. He got his code from someone entirely different, so not only is he now likely immortal, but he can still use his ridiculously powerful Geass as well. And the best part to all of this is that it all seems pretty planned. Think about it. Lelouch was clearly hiding the brand on purpose and neglected to warn anybody about the potential immortality besides C2. He did what he could to make his original vision a reality, a world full of peace, but what's that dream if you don't get to see it? Lelouch planned this all from the beginning. Now not only does he get to survive and enjoy the world he helped create, but he's able to return if anything gets horrible and he's more powerful than he was before. That's quite the genius plan. Lelouch's death at the end of the anime wasn't a death at all, only the ending to a brilliantly concocted plan. After gaining the code from his father, he was able to play everyone right into his hands. Not only was he able to create the peaceful world he always wanted, but he was able to trick Suzaku into helping him become immortal. Not only that, he now gets to continue on with the most overpowered ability in the series. That's some kind of ridiculous plan, but only one that Lelouch could truly pull off and fool everyone with. This man is well beyond just being a genius. And hey, if you like this video, why not subscribe or check out some of my other theories. I'm going to be posting some other Code Geass theories, so that should be pretty fun, and I've got some other interesting stuff planned, so look forward to it. Anyways, see you later.